So hello there. This is Ryan Haley with Atlantic Shores Sotheby's International Realty. And today I'm extremely excited to introduce you to our guest, somebody who is not only a guest, but also a past client of ours here. And somebody I'm excited to introduce to you, especially with it being Veterans Day here. So I'd like to introduce you to Brigadier General Mr. Bob Brady, also Dr. Brady. We were just talking about this. He goes by a number of different names here. I referred to him as Bob when I was getting to know him. But thanks for being on today.
My pleasure.
Well, and first off, I do want to say, thank you again for your service to our country. Thank you for being a great past client. You were very easy to work with, and we appreciate that. But the reason I wanted to have you on here and share some of this with our current and past clients is really because you've got a great story. From the day that I was able to sit down with you and learn more about your goals with trying to sell the property here in Ocean City, it was fascinating to learn more about your ultimate history and your military service. So what I wanted to do is just start off here and ask you, what was your full rank and what part of the armed services were you in?
My full rank is Brigadier General, and I was in the United States Army. And I was in the United States Army for 30 years, but I retired 25 years ago.
Got it. And when you were in the military, so I mentioned doctor here in the intro. What was your role in the military? What did you do?
Well, I had many roles to start with. My first role was just to be a practicing dentist in the Army. We were stationed at Fort Rucker, Alabama, a place you've probably never heard of.
No.
It's the home of Army aviation. And I was a practicing dentist. While I was there, in those days, you only came in for 2 years. But while I was there, I enjoyed it very much because I was working with people from all over the country. We were working in clinics. We never worked alone. We worked in clinics where you had many people with you. And so I enjoyed that so much that I made a decision that it was really better for me to stay in the military. There were many things I could do, and I could get trained further in a residency in a specialty that I wanted. So I applied to be regular Army, which in those days was a year-long process, and I was accepted. Then I volunteered to go to Vietnam because I was going to go anyhow. This way I could select the time I wanted to go. And it was a good place for my family to live outside of Fort Rucker while I was gone. So in fact, that's what we did. And when I came back, we went to Fort Sam Houston, Texas, which is in San Antonio. We went there, and that's where I had my residency. My specialty of dentistry is prosthodontics. What that means is I do crown, bridge, dentures, partial dentures, and now we do implants. And so I got my residency there. And after that, we went out to Tacoma, Washington, to Madigan Army Medical Center, Fort Lewis. And we practiced there. And it was out there that I started to teach in a residency training program. And I also became board certified in my specialty. At my request, a couple of years earlier, I had asked the chief of the dental corps, could I go to Command and General Staff College? And he said, actually, he looked at me and he said, I don't think you'll embarrass the Corps. And so he said, call him, told me who to call. I did, and that year I came out on the list. There were only 3 of us to go to Command and General Staff College at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. I did that for a year, and then the dental corps began to have command of different places. And I was selected to be a commander at the lieutenant colonel level over in Germany. So that was the first time we went overseas. We went to Germany, spent 3 years in a place called Bad Kreuznach. We really enjoyed it. And at the end of my tour in Bad Kreuznach, I became promoted to colonel. And when I came back from Bad Kreuznach, I was assigned to Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Washington, D.C. to direct a prosthodontic residency training program. Something I never thought I would do, but I did. They let me do that. And so it was good. We did that for 3 years. And then I moved on. I spent a year in the Pentagon. And then I spent a year at a senior service college called the Industrial College of the Armed Forces, which is located at Fort McNair in Washington, D.C. And so I did that. And following that, they let me command all the dental activity at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Now, the thing that made that so exciting was when I was in Vietnam, I was the brigade dentist to the 3rd Brigade of the 82nd Airborne Division, which had been deployed to Vietnam. Well, what that means in the military is when I finished that deployment and I came back, I wore the 82nd Airborne patch on my right sleeve forever, which indicated that's who I served in combat with. And so we went to Fort Bragg, which is the home of the 82nd Airborne. We were readily accepted because of that. And it was also, from a dental standpoint, the largest dental activity in the Army. We spent 3 years there. And then at the end of 3 years, we were reassigned to Walter Reed Army Medical Center, where I was the commander of the dental activity up in the Washington, D.C. area. Walter Reed, Fort McNair, and Fort Myer. As I was in that for about 3 months, the Brigadier General in Fort Sam Houston, Texas, died. He was out running with his daughter, and he collapsed and died. That was the star that I got about 6, 7 months later. And I was sent to Fort Sam Houston, Texas, to essentially take his place. We stayed there 2 years, and then we were reassigned to Germany, where I became the deputy commander of the 7th Medical Command, which in that time frame owned all of the physicians, doctors, nurses, dentists, medical service corps officers in Europe for the Army. While I was there, the decision had been made to do away with the 7th Medical Command because the Army was decreasing in size in Germany. When they took away the 7th Medical Command, the combat side of it was formed as the 30th Medical Brigade. And I was the commanding general of the 30th Medical Brigade. And that's the brigade that would go when the Army Europe or the 5th Corps would go out on a 6-month departure for combat. That's the brigade that would go to take care of them. We had a MASH unit, combat support hospital, half the dentists in Europe, all the veterinarians, that kind of stuff. So we did that until I retired in 1995. And then we came back to Washington, D.C., because when we left Washington, D.C., we bought the house we lived in 1980, left it in 1985 to go to Fort Bragg, but we kept the house and rented it out. Came back to it in 1988, only for 8 months. Went back in that house for the 8 months, left it, rented it out again. And when I retired in 1995, we came back there for one major reason. And that was if you owned a house that you rented out, you had to live in it, I believe it was 3 out of 6 years, to claim the deductions that you could when you sold the house. So we came back into it to live for 3 years and we stayed in it 10. And then we sold it, and we moved out to where we are in Columbia, Maryland right now, in a 55 or better community, which we really like. What you asked me earlier was, what did I do when I retired? When I retired, I was asked to apply to be the executive director of 2 dental organizations. The main one is called the International College of Dentists, and the other one was the USA section. And for one, I was the Secretary General. For the other, I was the registrar. And I did that for 10 years. And when I retired from that, I decided that I was going to retire, period. And I've been totally retired now for 11 years. I think it's absolutely wonderful. I think it's great living here, being retired. And that's it. That's the sum total of my military training.
So we just got 30 years of military and 25 post-military, right?
Correct.
So, and that's just fascinating to me. There's just so much travel there, so much moving around, so many experiences. But tell me a little bit more about your family and how that plays.
My wife and I have 4 children, 3 daughters and 1 son. Our oldest daughter she started out at Duke, but graduated from University of Maryland. She had an ROTC scholarship, an Air Force scholarship. So she was going into the Air Force when she graduated college. She did, but she had met her husband, future husband, first, and they got married about 10 days before they went in the service. And that was 1984. He stayed in the service 26, 27 years and retired as a full colonel in the Air Force.
Wow.
Daughter number 2 graduated from Towson University in Maryland, and she stayed in the Gaithersburg area of Maryland. She married her high school sweetheart, and they have lived in the same house now for the 25 years that we've been retired. And they both work. Matter of fact, today as we talk, she's working from home on a computer. He's working from home on a computer, and 2 of their children are working from home on computers. That's simply the way we live today. Daughter number 3 graduated from University of North Carolina. She married a fellow who was in Charlotte, I should say. And then he was picked up for Harvard Business School. So they went to Boston. They got married while they were in Boston. And then they moved to New Jersey because he works on Wall Street. And they've been there for as long as they've been married. And then our son, who's the last one, youngest, when he started out in college, didn't like it, and we were in Germany at the time. And so when I picked him up for Christmas vacation at the airport in Germany, on the way home, I said to him, Michael, your grades this semester were terrible. What are you going to do about this? Thinking I would scare him into doing it. And he said, Dad, not a problem. I just enlisted in the Army. I was pretty happy I didn't drive off the road when he told me that. But he did. He enlisted in the Army, and he stayed in the Army for 25 years. And he retired 3 years ago. He's a biomedical repair technician. He now works for the VA in Columbus, Ohio. So those are my 4 children. My wife has been with me the whole time. She's one of the reasons why I got promoted, because she was so efficient and good at what she did, being a general's wife. And so that's it in a nutshell. Oh yeah, I didn't tell you, we have 11 grandchildren.
11 grandchildren.
Yep.
That's pretty remarkable there. I mean, to think, I mean, I also have 4 kids, and every day I kind of wonder, what their future holds. And, especially with the world of Zoom and homeschooling today, and, what does that mean for college? What's their future going to, be? And to have 4 children go off to, to grade schools, or to be in the military, to have these, to make it through and be successful like you have, that's a huge accomplishment.
Well, it was a good accomplishment in the day we all did it. I can't tell you how it is today for parents with with children, young children in school, and having to do it on a computer at home. It sounds very difficult to me. Our youngest grandchildren, the youngest 2, are both in college. One's at the University of Maryland, and one's at the University of North Carolina. But even at the University of Maryland, a lot of their classes are done on computer. And both boys are pre-med students. But it's difficult. It's really difficult.
Yeah.
And I give them a whole lot of credit for being able to do it.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this question, which kind of gets off track a little bit, but staying in line with the world and things changing, and quite honestly, with the pandemic being the way it is, I mean, there a lot of these kids who are juniors and seniors in high school, or even a little bit younger, are trying to make decisions as to, are they going to go to college? Is college going to be the same anymore? Are we going to see these big stadiums filled with sporting, events and people, and maybe college starts to not be where they ultimately, I guess, their end goal anymore. What can you speak to maybe some of the up and coming generation when they're trying to make decisions as to, should I go into college, or should I also possibly consider the military? What advice would you give that generation now trying to make those decisions?
Well, first of all, that generation probably wouldn't want to listen to me because of my age. But it's now a difficult decision. It was not a difficult decision when my children went to college. One of the things that I think has happened is we slowly but firmly got into the situation of everybody must go to college. And we lost track of all the vocational schools that we had. There are plenty of students in high school who really don't want to go to college, who would be better off being electricians, plumbers, etc., in a trade. And that's what I think they should do. My son he really didn't care for college. So he went in the military. But before he retired from the military, he did get his college degree. He realized some parts of it he needed, and a lot of it would benefit him when he retired. And in fact, it did. And so it's something each student has to decide for themselves, but their parents have to let them make that decision. And that's the key. Now, I do feel sorry today, particularly sorry for the students who graduated high school last June and are now in college. I mean, they simply didn't have a graduation, and now they're in college, but they're doing it by Zoom, and many of them are doing it at home. They're not even in a dorm. So it's a very difficult time. I don't envy any of them, but I think it will all come about successfully. It's going to be at least another year before we get to that point. And as far as stadiums, they're slowly trying to get people into the stadium. But even when you see it on TV, it's obvious the stadium is empty. They can't put enough people in there to make it look full. But I got to tell you, in all honesty, we don't go out in crowds. We stay away from crowds because we're too old to take the chance. And as a matter of fact, our family has decided for Thanksgiving, we are not going to get together as a group. We just simply, because the kids are in college, they're coming home. There's kids out in the workforce, they're coming home. It's better off if we don't get together.
Yeah.
So all four of our kids have made that decision.
Yeah. And those are tough decisions to be making. A lot of families are going through that right now, trying to plan as to, what this year is going to look like. But, it's probably best to be safe, when,
Absolutely.
when you can.
As a matter of fact, I have to have a pulmonary function test. And I was supposed to have it, excuse me, I was supposed to have it yesterday, but the technician had an emergency, so they had to cancel it. But in preparation for that, I had to have a COVID test on Tuesday. I came out negative, which makes me very happy that up to this point, I have not had it. And we'll see what happens in the future.
Yeah. It's we've got a ways to go. I know Maryland has done a pretty good job. Maryland and Delaware have done a pretty good job, all in all, with our numbers. And we, I know there's been some increase recently, but and I think we've done pretty good. And hopefully, knock on wood, we'll continue to be okay.
I agree.
One question I did want to ask here, that might have changed. We touched on it briefly, but the role of the military today. Obviously you were in Vietnam. That was a different role than what we've seen, throughout parts of my life. Wartime versus non-wartime. What do you see, the role of the military being as we continue to move forward over the course of the next, 5, 10, 15 years?
Well, the military always has to be ready to fight. That's its main contribution. However, in today's environment, we're shrinking the military in various locations, Europe being one, and we're using them in other positions. When we go to Afghanistan, we now have our military be more of a police force than an active duty fighting force, which is why they want to get out of Afghanistan. We've been there too long, and so and I have a granddaughter. My son's daughter, she went into the Army 2 years ago, and she's already spent 7 months in Afghanistan. And she's a combat medic. But going back to my family, I spent 30 years in the Army. My son spent 25 years in the Army. My granddaughter is now 2 years in the Army. And she's not necessarily looking to get out.
Good. So I appreciate, you taking the time to give us your history, give us the stories. I truly enjoy them. I know we could continue to talk all day. It's hard to condense 30 years into a little bit of time here on a Zoom call, but I have to ask this because this is how we met. You've traveled all over the world. You've seen all the oceans. You've seen different beaches. I have to ask, what was it about Ocean City when you were trying to pick a location for a vacation home?
Okay.
What was it about Ocean City that you enjoyed and then continued to enjoy for 18 years, 19 years, 20 years?
Actually, we've enjoyed it for a long time. When we got here in 1980, we knew nothing about Ocean City because we had never lived in Maryland. When our kids were in high school in 1980, they're the first ones that told us about Ocean City. And so in 1982, we made our first week visit to Ocean City. And we liked it. We thought it was great. And so the next year, through one of our high school daughters, we got in touch with a couple who owned a condo in the Braemar Towers, which is where we wound up. And we rented for 2 weeks in their condo for several years. And then we started going to a 2-bedroom condo et cetera, et cetera. And eventually, for reasons, I think it amounted to this. We had paid off our house. And when you pay off your house, all of a sudden you have a lot of money. And so we decided that let's buy a condo in Ocean City that we can go to, that our children and grandkids would love. We went to the Braemar, specifically bought a condo in the Braemar. And the funny part of that is, in my opinion, I was on a trip out to Salt Lake City to set up a meeting. And my wife called me and she said, she had seen the condo. She thought we ought to look at it very seriously. And here I am in Salt Lake City. So I said, we wound up talking about it. And I said, well, who owns it? Oh, she said, it's a lady named Brigham. Well, I'm in Salt Lake City and the owner is Brigham. I said, we got to buy that. And so we did. That's the condo we bought. And we bought it in 2004. And we've had it ever since till this year when we sold it. And so it was from 82 to 2020 is how many years we've been going to Ocean City. And we loved it, absolutely loved it, and would do it again. But it also became time because of our age and the fact that our kids, they just can't use it anymore. And nor can the grandkids, they're all working. So it was time for us to sell it, which you did a good job at getting sold. So that all worked out well for us.
Well, we certainly appreciate the opportunity to assist you in that. As you know, it's definitely a team effort here. We worked together to get it sold. You guys were great to work with, which made it very easy for us. So I appreciate that.
We enjoyed it, and we're very happy with the people who bought.
Yeah, that was a unique aspect. You got a chance to meet the buyers there.
He called me up and said, could they, after they had made their decision, could he come over with his boys and his wife? And I said, sure. Well, they showed up. They had himself, his wife, two boys, and her parents. And so they came in. We must have spent an hour to an hour and a half just talking with the grandparents because they were our age. And it was just fun. And Jana would talk to the wife. I would talk to John, and it just worked out well. And I'm very happy. They were very good and loved it. And I'm glad that's who bought it.
Yeah. It's always good when you can pass the baton, pass it on, to somebody who's going to be able to enjoy it just as much as you did, for years to come.
Yep, I agree.
So, well, I do really appreciate all your time. Once again, I thank you for your service and what you've done for our country. This is a great story. You've got a great story. I'm excited to share it with our friends and family, past clients here from our company. So I do thank you for your time, and I thank everybody for tuning in.
All right. Thank you. I'm very proud to have served.
We're proud that you did for us in our future, in our today, or in our future generations. So thank you.
Okay. God bless America.
That's right. Thank you.